when a married couple ventures deep into the Pacific Northwest wilderness in search of a mythical flower. What starts as a quirky botanical quest spirals into a hallucinatory nightmare of glowing blood, eerie silence, and body horror. Join us for a descent into madness.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Enrique Couto, and we have quite a terrifying story of hiking and nature and all that other terrible stuff. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that tomorrow, right here on the Weekly Spooky feed, we have a little extra treat for your ears from a good friend. So make sure you tune in tomorrow and check it out. And on Friday, well, we just might have a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe horror for you to enjoy. So make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting app, and if you haven't already, leave us a 5-star rating at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really does help the show. And if you want to help us in a much more direct way, you can head to weeklyspooky.com/join. For as little as $1 a month, you get bonus episodes twice a month, as well as over 5 years of creepypasta readings, audiobooks, and so much more. That's at weeklyspooky.com/join. Your support means everything to me. I really mean that. But now, as for tonight, they say the woods can be quiet, too quiet, and sometimes it means something is watching. In the Pacific Northwest, there's a legend about a flower that only blooms once every 17 years. No one knows what it looks like because no one who's seen it has ever come back the same. Tonight's tale is about a camping trip, a mysterious plant, and the horrible things it can grow inside you. So get yourself cozy, and we'll start after this. A Plant Called Death by Bruce Haney. My wife was much more intelligent than I, and the nicer of the two of us. Yet she was the one who got us into that mess, the one that I found myself hiding from in the woods on what was supposed to be our vacation, terrified that she would find me. The quote-unquote vacation was her idea. My idea of a perfect vacation was returning to Cabo to hang out at the pool bar, have a few drinks, and read my books. Hers involved hiking 2 to 3 days deep into the woods to search for some elusive flower that may or may not exist. You have heard of the corpse flower, Amorphophallus titanarum, right? That elusive, rotten-smelling flower that only blooms every 7 to 10 years. Well, what if I told you there was another rare flower with a weird blooming cycle, one that most people haven't heard of, and those who have think it's just a myth? My wife told me about it and said that it was called death. When she told me this, I asked, "Really? That's the name?" "Yeah, it's called death. Just death. No hard-to-pronounce name that derives from several Latin words? Just death. Why not? Why is its name so simple when every other flower seems to have some long, hard-to-pronounce scientific name? She explained to me that no actual scientist had ever seen the flower. Most argued that it didn't exist. Because of how rare it was, they didn't even know how often it bloomed. Was it 10 years? 15 years? One estimated 30. But Sarah didn't think it was quite that long of a blooming cycle. There are only a handful of references to it in historical documents, and one of those is believed to be fiction. One of the earliest references she found was in the 3rd issue of Oregon's first newspaper, the Oregon Spectator. That article went something like this: man found dead in a precarious position in a condition that baffled the person who found them. There are no signs of any other people, and multiple large animals were found nearby in various states of mutilation. It might not have been Cabo, but it was exciting to get away from the city, away from work, and away from my phone. As we drove, my worries drifted away as we stopped passing Starbucks and McDonald's and started passing by trees and nature, eventually even spotting wildflowers along the side of the road. Yes, it rains all the time here, but that suffering pays off once spring hits. Everything in the Pacific Northwest starts to bloom. We parked near the trailhead of Blue Ruin Pass, so named after an incident on the Oregon Trail where 6 men died after consuming some ill-distilled liquor that people refer to as Blue Ruin. With us came our long-term friends Jane and Tom, who were a couple that met through us at one of our summer backyard parties. Tom was a colleague of Sarah's. Jane was my buddy. We met about 10 years ago. She was a regular at the bar near my house. We quickly became friends because of our shared taste in music. On karaoke nights, we both sang 90s alternative rock. I would sing songs like Semi-Charmed Life and Flagpole Sitta, and she would mostly sing songs by Sublime. There was never any flirting, at least from my end. If she had, it wouldn't have been noticed by me. My happy marriage kept me from looking for that kind of thing. Tom seemed like a stand-up guy, so there were never any worries from me about the two of them flirting or anything like that, especially after he became partners with Jane. He was a bit of a hard hang for me. We didn't have nearly any shared interests, as I know fuck all about plants, and outside of his work, sports was his favorite subject, which I also know fuck about. You can't beat the Pacific Northwest for its nature, Tom said while pulling his supplies out of the vehicle. You look so happy, baby, Jane said. I am. 6 days in nature is heaven, Tom said. I'm just happy to be off work, I added. Sarah was busy going through her bags, making sure she had everything she needed. pH meter, check. Shears, check. Notebook, camera. Yep. There that is. Yep, I think I got everything. She smiled at me. How about you? I have clothes, portable meals, and our shelter. What else would I need? Vodka, Jane said. Gross. I have a bottle of whiskey in my bag, I said. Then I think we're set, Jane replied. The first day was uneventful. We walked, took breaks, and chatted. It was a fairly easy trail. The elevation gain was moderate. The only struggle was a large downed tree that had landed on the trail and that we had to climb over. It took Jane and Tom a couple of attempts. We didn't stop walking until nearly nightfall. After setting up the tents, we had dehydrated soup for dinner. It was all right. Excusing myself from the group, the rest of my night was spent reading the new Charles Campbell book and sipping whiskey. In the middle of the night, there was a rustling sound outside our tent that woke me. Sarah, being a sound sleeper, was oblivious. It didn't quite sound like a human, so I didn't think it was Jane or Tom. Then there was a hissing sound that startled me. "What the fuck?" I said a little too loudly. This startled Sarah, who bolted upright. "What's wrong?" "Sorry, nothing. I just heard an animal outside moving around the camp, and then I got startled when I heard it hiss." "Hiss?" "Yeah. Like a bobcat or a cougar?" Sarah said, revealing a bit of panic in her voice. "Smaller, more like a possum." "Oh, okay. Then go back to bed," she said. "You know possums freak me the fuck out." "Yeah, and I don't know why. They're adorable." "They're disgusting, regardless of what crazy people on those TikTok videos you send me say." Sarah laughed. She knew my hatred of possums, so she sent me pro-possum TikTok videos every day. Videos of people holding the disgusting things and saying stuff like, "Oh, isn't he cute? Oh, he's just a little baby." It made my skin crawl. We heard a rustling against the tent again, which made me move closer to my wife.
Don't go away. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
"Calm down, it's nothing. Come on, get to sleep. We have a long hike tomorrow." "Okay." Another rustling was heard at the tent, and then I saw the impressions on the wall as it pushed its little hands against the material. "Fuck this!" Grabbing my shoe and hitting against the would-be intruder seemed to scare it off. It hissed one more time, then we could hear it run off. "John, you heard it." "Good. Why are you so afraid of possums?" "Experience. When I was little, I ran into the woods and one freaked me out." "Why?" "You imagine being alone in the woods as a young child and seeing what looks like a giant rat with mange hanging from a tree." "I would have thought it was cute." "That's because you're crazy," I joked. "Fuck you," she said playfully. But the worst was when my mom spotted a wounded possum near our house. Because of its condition, she started feeding it. Everything was fine for a few days, and I even found myself warming up to the idea of them. But one night I was taking out the trash, and it must have been around the time that my mom usually fed him, because I went outside and there was a dozen of them with their ugly pink skin and matted hair and beady eyes. I was already scared, and then they all started hissing. "Hiss, hiss, hiss," I said, squinting my face and holding my hands like claws. Sarah laughed. "Hey, it was traumatic to me." She continued to laugh. "I'm sorry. I don't laugh at your trauma. My trauma isn't hilarious." The next morning, we woke up to discover the damage our nighttime visitors had done. There was no rhyme or reason for what they destroyed. It didn't appear that they were going after the food. After some powdered eggs on tortillas, we started our hike for the day. The end goal was to reach Roots Ridge by dark. From Sarah's calculations, she believed the death plant could be found around there. "Remember, keep your eyes peeled and your nose open. I don't expect to find it on the way, but you never know," she said with excitement. "So, why do you think it'll be near the ridge?" Jane asked. Do you know the legend of Roots Ridge? Sarah asked. No, I just know it's supposed to have a great view of Cougar Lake. Was a semi-popular route on the Oregon Trail. People supposedly stopped using it after the Barlow Trail was established. But I think it was the Roots family tragedy that led people trying to find another route. What happened to them? Jane asked. Well, it's hard to say. What people wrote versus what happened isn't always the same thing, and people back then tended to shy away from the gory details. But one of the people who found them, for how messed up they were, said he would have rather come across the Donner Party. And Sarah believes that the Roots incident has something to do with the death plant, Tom said. Oh, so this plant has some kind of dark history to it, yet we are trying to find it, Jane said. They were also malnourished and in a state of starvation, which could explain some of what happened, Sarah exclaimed. Plus, no one is going to force you to go near it. The rest of the hike that day felt off, but it was hard to place why. We were having fun. We had lots of amusing conversations. We found out that Tom fell in love with plants after seeing Little Shop of Horrors of all things. Jane told us the story of being busted as a teenager for shoplifting Green Day's American Idiot on CD. They wouldn't sell it to her because of the parental advisory sticker. Her mom was so mad that she took away all of her Green Day CDs, since they were such a so-called bad influence on her. Sarah also made me tell my possum stories so they could all join in on making fun of me. Tom was the one to figure out why the day felt so weird. Isn't it strange that we're in the middle of the woods, yet we hear almost no animal noises? I haven't even seen a gray squirrel today. That is strange, Sarah said. It's like that story, I told her, from that pulp writer, the really bad one. Henry B. Quinn, Sarah said. How did that go again? I have a copy with me, Sarah said, pulling off her pack to dig for the weird and fantastic monthly photocopy from 1931. Here it is. I don't want to read it. Come on, read it for us, Tom said. Why? Because it's the only entertainment we have out here, Jane said. Just read from here to there, Sarah said, pointing to the middle section of the second page. Okay. The story went like this. I never did know what evil-sent hunch guided me into those preternaturally quiet woods. I had merely gone out to find a good stick for the purpose of whittling. But there, I found myself deep in the woods, at the witching hour of all hours, miles away from my humble cottage home. It was like I had walked there in a daze, guided by my nose, chasing an indescribable scent. This daze that was broken only when my eyes finally fell upon what a plant that I would come to call death. It stood tall at 3 feet and was just as wide, though the only light was the moon up above. It was fully illuminated. It was a color that couldn't be described, as it was unlike anything that human eyes had ever laid eyes upon.
You're not safe yet. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Tom laughed. Sounds like a poor attempt at sounding like H.P. Lovecraft. Didn't H.P. publish his stories in that same rag? Maybe, I said, as I wasn't that much of a fan of old literature. The H.P. Lovecraft comparison is apt, Sarah said. Henry Quinn was obsessed with Lovecraft, but he was one of the few people who couldn't get a pen-pal relationship going with old H.P., and he wrote to everybody. It's estimated that he wrote 100,000 letters in his lifetime. What did Lovecraft call him again? I ask. An unintelligible, incompetent, titchy muddlepate. What does that even mean? Tom said. I forget, something like a small idiot. I had to Google it. We arrived at Roots Ridge at nightfall, and Sarah swore there was a strange scent in the air. I just smelled the pine trees, but I never had that great of a nose. She wanted to explore that night, to look for it, but we all talked her out of it, afraid that she would break her ankle on the rough terrain. We even talked her into drinking with us in celebration of making it to the ridge and the indescribable scent. It is quiet up here, Jane said, as she sipped her vodka, with a crystal light packet in it. Every ounce counts when hiking, so powdered drink mixes became our go-to mixer, which is disgusting. That's why Tom and I were drinking whiskey straight. I don't hear any movement in the woods at all, I added. Isn't it nice? Tom said, and held his collapsible cup up to clink against mine. It's eerie, I said. But whatever, after a few more drinks, I won't mind it. Just like the night before, I woke up to strange noises outside the tent. I was pretty sure I heard another possum hiss. I debated whether I should wake Sarah up, but when I looked over to where she should have been, she wasn't there. I heard animals scatter when I opened the tent. The footsteps sounded like they were from various sized animals, almost like all the different species in the woods came to meet at our campsite. Where were they all day? Sarah, I said out loud. It was not quite a whisper, but I didn't want to yell and wake Jenny and Tom up. But when I heard the zipper on their tent, I assumed I had. Did you hear all that? Jenny asked in a yell whisper. Yeah. Man, did Sarah sleep through that? Tom asked. I don't know where she is. Oh, Tom said. She probably just went out to piddle and then saw all the animals and decided to wait to come back. That's possible, I guess. Since they were both awake now, I took in a deep breath, funneled my hands around my mouth, and yelled, Sarah! I did this in each direction, not getting a response. I waited 2 minutes and did it again. Damn, I said. Then I walked back to my tent and grabbed my flashlight. I noticed hers was gone, as was the small bag where she kept her plant tools. When I came out, Tom and Sarah had their flashlights out. What's the plan? Jane asked. We decided we would stay together, and for now, we would only explore 100 yards from the camp in each direction. We found nothing when we went south, nor when we went north. When we went west, though, we came across a patch of white flowers that were unlike anything I had ever seen. When we put our flashlights on them, I could see that the whole plant was translucent and white, from the stem to the flowers. God, those are strange. It's just Monotropa uniflora, aka the ghost plant, Tom said. They're parasitic. So should we go around? I asked. It feeds on fungus instead of sunlight. Unless you're part fungi, you're safe, Tom said, and laughed. Jane moved her flashlight further into the group of the ghost plant, and then gave a little scream. Tom and I looked over to where her flashlight illuminated specks of blood. The red drops on the translucent white made them look like the blood was glowing. What the fuck? Jane said. There are a lot of animals in the woods. I'm sure it's just blood dripping from something carrying a rabbit through here, or a bleeding buck from a fight, Tom reassured us. Put out your flashlights, quick, I said, then put my hand over the front of my light. Tom and Jane followed. Even without our flashlights, we could see the blood because it was, in fact, glowing. Does the blood of a dead rabbit or buck glow? Jane asked. Maybe a chemical reaction between the plant and the blood, I asked. I doubt it, Tom told us. I began to walk in that direction. Where are you going? Jane asked. It's the only clue we have, I said and continued forward. They argued that my wife's blood doesn't glow, so it can't be hers, but I didn't listen. We saw more blood along the way. It was an easy path to follow. But at the end of the trail, we didn't find my wife. We found a dead deer that had its guts opened and splayed on the ground. The strangest part was that its legs appeared to be broken and pulled into angles that didn't make sense, like it had been dropped from a distance or attacked by something that could grab and pull back its legs. What the fuck? Tom said. In the distance, I heard movement in the woods. Be quiet. We stood there in silence as whatever was making that noise headed in our direction. Jane held on to her husband, but reached over to hold my hand as well. That glowing blood and the way that deer was killed spooked me. Why didn't I grab the bear mace before leaving my tent? It was getting closer. I could hear it struggle as it made its way up the ridge. Once it did, it would only be 25 yards in front of us. That only gave us a slight advantage if we had to run. And if it was a cougar or a bear, it wasn't an advantage at all.
Are you afraid? Good. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Put out your lights. When it was near the top of the ridge, we knew it was human. We could see light from a flashlight. I held my breath and hoped it was Sarah. As soon as the person got to the top, they pointed their light at us. How they knew exactly where we stood in the darkness, I had no idea. The light was too bright to know who it was. I looked away and thought about what I should do. Guys, you have to see this, Sarah said. Feeling relieved that it was my wife, I let go of Jenny's hand and made my way to her. You had me so worried. But my fear returned when I saw the blood on my old white oversized Blink-182 shirt that she always slept in. What happened to you? She looked down. Oh, this? A deer attacked me. You killed that deer? I asked. It was either me or it. I think it might have been rabid. Thank God it didn't bite me. She said like it wasn't that big of a deal. Come with me. We watched as she turned around and headed down the ridge. We were all hesitant, but we followed. The terrain was rough, but not impossible. Jane almost fell, but Tom was able to catch her. I think she was still buzzed. She could always drink me under the table. When we got to the bottom of the ridge, I could tell that our destination was through the trees, 100 yards or so. I saw there was a light. I found it. I can't believe I really found it, Sarah said as she guided us to what I imagined was the so-called death plant. It stood about 4 feet tall in the middle of a clearing. Around it sat what appeared to be large boulders. that were covered in so much moss and plant life that they must have been moved there a long time ago. The plant had a translucent quality to it that was not unlike the ghost plant, but just like that amateur weird fiction writer wrote, it gave off an indescribable scent. Not necessarily bad, but not a welcoming smell either. I found myself wanting to run, yet transfixed as I tried to comprehend what I was looking at. Right now, as I write this, I close my eyes and try to recall what it looked like, and I can barely picture it. I want to say that it was a large flower with different shades of black and purple, but the colors were ever changing, and the longer I stared at it, the more the feeling of sickness came over me. Sarah walked right up to it and went to touch it. "Don't," I said. She just smiled at me as she first touched, and then she slid her hand right through its pulpy mass without any resistance. And when she pulled her hand back, it showed no sign that it had ever been penetrated. But her hand was different. It glowed in shifting colors of black, purple, and blue. As she moved her hands around and opened and closed her fingers, we could all see these particles of glowing matter jumping from finger to finger. "What the fuck?" Jane and I said in unison. Sarah looked back at the plant and then nodded her head, like it was telling her something. She smiled and put both hands into the plant, then back out, and took the glowing substance and rubbed it through her hair. "Stop!" She didn't. She continued wiping the goo onto her face and her arms, then put her hands back in for more. This time she took her covered hand and wiped the glowing substance all over the inside of her mouth. "The fuck are you doing?" "I think we need to go," Jane said. Tom took her hand, and they began to walk away. When Sarah began to float a few inches off the ground, they took off running. Sarah grabbed Jane's other arm so hard that it not only pulled them both to the ground, but I heard her arm break in several places. Tom let go of her and ran. Sarah followed him, so I grabbed Jane, who was screaming in pure agony, and dragged her in the opposite direction. As we ran, I started shushing her. Be quiet, please!" I took us to the embankment to climb up in a different area, which I believed would take us close to our camping site. She was out of her mind in pain and panic, and it was a near impossible task, but we were able to get up there without my wife catching us. I didn't want to think about what she was doing to Tom. I wondered if he would look like that deer, or worse. Back at the campsite, I grabbed a backpack and filled it with essentials, food and water. Jenny grabbed her bottle of vodka and chugged it. "Something to numb the pain," she told me. "We need to keep moving. Is there anything else you need?" Jane grabbed a jacket and winced in pain as she slid it over her broken arm and then onto the other. "I think I'm good," she said, and gave a fake smile. "Okay, let's go." Before we could, we heard breaking branches and crunching brush, as if somebody was running through the rough terrain. We didn't wait around. We took off running. I was afraid that my wife would find us because Jane was crying out in pain from the shaking of her broken arm as she ran. But, to my surprise, we got away.
Shh, it was only the wind. You're safe. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
When the sun came out, we realized we were not on the trail back, like we had thought. Feeling defeated and worn out, we decided to get some sleep since we hadn't heard her sounds in hours. Jane found us a nice spot to hide, semi-hidden between two downed trees. I found a few broken branches to put over the top to further aid our hiding spot. It might have helped us camouflage, but it didn't help when the spring rain came. We held each other for warmth. Before we fell asleep, Jane spoke. "Do you think Tom made it?" "I don't know. Do you think my wife can be saved? It has to be some kind of toxin, right?" Sure, Jane said, trying to comfort me. "In case we die, I just want you to know I always loved you. As a friend, of course, but if things were different and if Sarah wasn't so damn good for you, I mean, before the toxic plant-induced psychosis and murderousness, I would have wanted to be with you." I held her tighter and fell asleep. We woke up hours later, freezing and drenched from rain. But that wasn't what woke us. It was the sound of something moving in the woods. Curiosity kept us hiding instead of running. Jane stared with intent in the direction of the noise. I think she was hoping it was her husband. The part that piqued my interest was the irregular pattern of its movement. The sound was unnerving. Your whole life you're used to the rhythm of how things move, sometimes with slight differences. Some people drag their feet more than others, but this was different. Nothing moved like this. It was thud, pause, thud, thud, pause, thud, thud, thud. When it appeared, Jane gripped my hand harder. Her face froze in terror, with her mouth open like she meant to scream, but was in too much shock to do so. Tears were filling her eyes. I looked back at Tom, who was heading our way. The changed Tom, with his broken limbs. He walked on his hands and legs, and each time he stepped, you could see the bones shifting at the points where they were broken, instead of at the joints. He also had the purple plant goo rubbed on him in various spots. "Tom!" Jane yelled. I put my hand over her mouth. If he can continue moving in that state, he is no longer your Tom. He is either something else or so insane that he can't be trusted. I took my hand off her mouth. "We've got to go." Her gaze was transfixed on him now. She didn't respond, so I stood up and grabbed her by the shoulders to get her up and moving. This was a mistake. It saw us. The thing that once was Tom smiled, revealing his blood-stained mouth and teeth. He was so broken that it could have been his own blood coming out of his mouth from the sheer trauma he had been through. Or maybe he had killed and eaten something on the way up here. "Hello, honey," Tom said. This snapped Jane out of it, and she turned to run. I did the same. But that was the moment we saw something glowing in the woods, heading our way. It didn't take long to realize it was my wife, now covered head to toe in the purple goo from that plant. She was illuminated, and just like that plant, she had become semi-transparent. I could see her now purple blood rushing through her body, and I could see her heart pumping it. We heard a scream behind us, and we turned to see Tom leaping into the air towards us. He might have been able to get into the air using his broken limbs, but when he landed, his body couldn't support the weight, and he dropped hard to the ground. With that, his right femur broke through the skin. This didn't stop him. He now dragged that broken limb as he continued his pursuit. Jane grabbed my hand and pulled me to run. We headed back down the main path in the direction of the car. Of course, even at running speed, it would take hours to get back. We just had to lose them. I knew we could get away from Tom, but Sarah was always faster than I, and with her death plant energy or whatever, who knew what that did for her speed? We ran and hoped that they were not catching up, but when we got to that one area of the trail that we hit earlier and had to climb over the downed tree, I leaped over it and landed on the other side and kept going. Then, a few seconds later, I heard a large thud. Jane had tried to do the same and must not have jumped high enough and tripped, landing face down hard on the ground. Sarah, in her ghoulish condition, suddenly appeared on top of that downed tree, stopping me from wanting to move forward to help Jane. "Hiya, John. Why don't you come here and give your wife a little kiss?" she said, and pursed her lips. Her now purple saliva dripped out of her mouth. Rain check? But I just need a little kiss. Come on, Johnny. Just a little kiss. More of the thick slime dripped out of her mouth. It made me sick to my stomach. I'm just not in a sexy kind of mood. I continued the conversation in hopes that it would give Jane time to get up. She was starting to move a bit. But then an arm appeared on the downed tree, and quickly I saw it was Tom pulling himself on top of it as well. His body was hideous, not just from the mutilations and limbs being bent in weird directions, but he was now bloody and beaten up from using that broken body to pursue us. "Jane, come on!" She put her arms out and started to get up, but then Tom leaped onto her back and began biting huge chunks out of her. Jane looked up at me in terror. I was full of fear, but I moved towards her to try and get him off. But then her wilderness friends appeared behind her, all covered in the slime. There was a deer, a beaver, and a few squirrels, but what terrified me most was the half-dozen hissing possums. I froze, but when Sarah jumped down and all her critters followed, I ran, leaving my best friend behind. It seemed like I had run for hours, but who knows? Pure adrenaline is disorientating. Only once I ran out of all energy did I look behind me. Thankfully, there was nothing following. Stopping was a mistake. Once I did, my body tightened up, and I could barely move. So, with the little energy I had, I walked slowly off the trail and sat behind a downed tree that barely hid me. But it was as far as I could go. Next to the tree was a rhododendron bush. I used to like these, but their purple color was now ugly to me. The warmth from the sun, as night became day once again, felt nice. And, despite everything, I found myself falling asleep. When I woke up in the afternoon, I made my way to the car. Whatever happened to them, I don't know. I went to the police and reported the incident. Some rangers went up there, and there were search parties as well. Everyone in my life looked down on me for not joining in the search, and it made some think that I must have killed them. Hopefully this will make everybody understand, but since I am writing this from the Locust Grove Mental Hospital, I don't know how much credence people will give it. All I can say is to make sure that you stay away from Roots Ridge, especially in the spring of 2039, which should be the next time it blooms, if Sarah's calculations were right about its blooming every 17 years. Well, my spookies, I hope that helps put you into the right mood and spirit as you decide to head out on that springtime hike as the weather continues to get warm and cheery. Or does it? Well, regardless, just make sure you wear a good pair of hiking boots. Thank you so much for joining me this week on Weekly Spooky. I very much appreciate it. And I hope you're subscribed because we have so many more stories to bring you. Today was 332 stories shared on the program, and we have no plan to slow down. So subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and be ready for a little taste of Halloween every single week, because that's how we live in the spooky lifestyle. And if you want to support us and help us go another 332 episodes, head to weeklyspooky.com/join. For as little as $1 a month, you get 2 bonus shows every month, as well as over 5 years of creepypasta readings, audiobooks, and so very much more. That's weeklyspooky.com/join. And speaking of, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters. These are folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their name at the end of the show. And they are Kate and Lulu, Jessica Fuller, Jenny Green, Amber Hansford, Brent McCullough, Karen Wiemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. If you want to hear your name at the end of the show out of my silky, spooky voice, just head to weeklyspooky.com/join and choose a tier at $15 a month or higher. It really does make a huge difference, and we're getting ready to launch a brand new Strickfield novel, which will be releasing 2 chapters per month over at weeklyspooky.com/join. So make sure you sign up and join over 90 other spookies in supporting Halloween all year long. But now it's time for me to get back to it. I'll have more for you very soon. So for myself, for my producer Dan Wilder, my executive producers Rob Fields, Mark Shields, and Bobbletopia.com, and my composer Ray Mattis, I'll talk at you next time.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.